Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Shark Trust podcast, where we go behind the scenes of shark conservation, talk about our projects and all the cool stuff that happens behind. In this episode, we are joined by our citizen science data analyst, Harriet Allen.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mark.
Could you start off by telling the people watching, people listening, a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are now?
So I've always been massively interested in the sea and sharks. It's kind of been since I was toddling along about yay high. Wanted to be a shark doctor. Quite promptly realised that wasn't really a proper career path. Went into marine biology. Tried a few different things out. Worked out that I really like data analysis and mapping and things like that. And then kind of bounced around a few jobs. Got into habitat mapping. And then when I saw a job come up for data analysis at the Shark Trust, I jumped at the chance. And then, yeah, here I am 2 years later, still at the Trust.
So obviously there is this kind of like data analysis, working with all them difficult numbers that your spreadsheets give me headaches. But what are the other parts of this role? Because obviously you do the citizen science like engagement part.
So a large part of my role is what I fondly refer to as being a data librarian. So it's any records that come in, I will check them, I will make sure that the information is correct, whatever hasn't been filled in is filled in, and then make sure it goes to the correct databases. And then after that, it's a lot of management and checking that it's all up to date and all the databases are stored in the correct places, that we've got backups. And then it's lots of data exports for people that maybe request data from us, or if we're wanting to use it for a summary report or anything like that. So it's a lot of the management side of it. And there's a lot of summary statistics for things like the Great Egg Case Hunt. So we put out yearly reports and sometimes even more than that. So yeah, I'll do kind of analysis and mapping for where all our results are coming from, and then just do a general report so the people that are taking part can actually find out what they've contributed to.
And if we take like a little step back from, because that we're going to go into a lot of detail about that in a second, the actual getting the data, obviously this citizen science data, could you tell us a bit about kind of the outreach and educational kind of aspect of this and kind of that part of your role?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the Great Egg Case Hunt itself is the Trust's flagship project. It's been going since 2003, so we had our 20th anniversary last year, which was very exciting. The whole kind of idea of that is getting people interested and excited by science and shark conservation. So as anyone that can go outside, go to the beach, go looking for egg cases, or with some of our other projects, it's looking for sharks on the coast, or if you're on a boat or diving and things like that. It's things that are really easy for you to do. Sometimes you might need to be a diver, sometimes it might just be going for a walk on the beach with your friends or family or a dog or something like that. And then if anything you find that is linked to one of those projects, you can take a photo and then submit it online, and that then helps us spread the word. It's largely spread by word of mouth for a lot of these projects. Mostly because people find it really enjoyable and it's really good fun, and things like the egg case hunt can get very competitive. But yeah, it's great fun. So it spreads by word of mouth, and then we have, of course, all our social media and our teams. We sometimes host our own events. These are largely for the egg cases, because it's a lot harder to host events for the underwater things. There's a lot more setup involved for those. So for things like the Great Egg Case Hunt, we will sometimes do events. We can go into schools or marine centres and give talks and kind of explain shark biology, how some of them lay eggs, some of them don't, and then the conservation issues and the threats involved. And yeah, this is all just designed to spread awareness and kind of an understanding of the biodiversity, especially around British coasts, because lots of people just kind of go shark equals white shark a lot of the time. And yeah, so it's kind of talking about the diversity and range that we've actually got in our waters and how amazing it is.
I think, having that variety, as you were saying there, the ones where it might be that you're going underwater, but then also having those ones where you're on the beach, it kind of makes it accessible for a large group of people to be involved in shark conservation, which is kind of the amazing kind of thing, because we want as many people to be involved as possible. Yeah. And then if we look at, you were talking there kind of about the shark biology. So the Great Egg Case Hunt is this flagship project for the Shark Trust with a ridiculous amount of records that have been found. Could you tell us a little bit about the kind of biology? So which sharks lay eggs, which rays skates lay eggs as well, and kind of what's a skate, what's a ray?
Yeah. So There are several different modes of reproduction in the shark world. Some of them have live births, some of them lay eggs, and some of them fall somewhere in the middle where the eggs are like retained inside and then they're birthed as if they are alive. And it's about 6 different modes of that. It gets a bit confusing. We won't go there. So oviparity, sorry, which is the egg laying. So there's a few species of like true sharks that do that. So that would be your cat sharks and your horn sharks. Then we've also got the chimera or ghost sharks. They also lay eggs. And then you have the skates. And so the rays are your flatter cousins to the sharks. So all skates are still rays, but if you are an egg-laying ray, you are one of the skate group. So it's kind of like a subsection of the rays. And so these are the ones where they lay their egg cases on the sea substrate or on like seaweed or rock or sand or something like that. And then when they get dislodged when they're born, they wash up on the beach, and then that's when our citizen scientists find them, hopefully get quite excited, record them and send them to us.
And could you tell us a bit kind of about the grey egg case hunt? So these egg cases, they've washed up. People have gone and found them, taken a picture of it, recorded it on the app or on the website.
Yeah.
How many are there that we've got that you have to scroll through? And is there like why are we collecting all this data, citizen science data on egg cases? What does it show you?
That is a big question. Well, first the how many and the how long, I guess. So it's been going for 20 years. Started off with a chance find on a beach in Devon from one of our colleagues' partners, and then the kind of idea sprung from there of, well, if we can just find this easily on the beach, then anyone else can, and it's kind of grown quite naturally and then started snowballing almost from there. So we have projects in Portugal, Netherlands, Australia. We've got translated ID resources and regional resources for around the Med and various other places, and hopefully more coming soon. So that's a constantly evolving side of it. So it's spread very naturally and grown considerably to the point where I think we now have, I think it's over 450,000 different egg cases recorded in our databases from I think about 40 different species, which is pretty good going. There's I think about 10% of them so far that we've got egg cases recorded from of egg-laying species. But of course some of these are going to be very rare or really deep species or like offshore species, so their egg cases are less likely to be washed up. Still good, and they could be found in like fisheries trawling or something like that. But the more common ones we're getting quite a lot of numbers from, especially the common ones around the UK coast, things like the thornback ray or the small spotted cat shark, which are incredibly common. So that's all comes into our database. We've got lots and lots and lots of records. I say the biggest part of the Great Egg Case Hunt is the engagement with the community. That's the big part of it. It is the spreading awareness of that sharks are on our shores and that it's not all just the standard kind of shark that everyone thinks of, that there's so much diversity in how they reproduce, how they look like, where they are. It helps us understand their range a little bit. So, for instance, in the southwest, you might end up finding 6 or 7 different species of egg cases, because you can tell it down to species level with the egg case. Whereas in some places it might be largely from one species. So for instance, in the south coast around Sussex Way, you're normally finding largely just ungulates. So it helps you understand the diversity of the area. Range is a bit trickier to unpick just because egg cases don't necessarily wash up where they were laid. There's things like waves and currents and wind, and anything can like kind of move them around a bit. So there's a little bit of wobbliness, shall we say, around where these egg cases wash up. It also helps us understand biology and morphology better. So when we started this, egg cases were known, but not necessarily to the extent we know them now. So over the last 20 years, there's been a lot more detailed understanding and unpicking of the different types of egg cases, and as I said, the morphology. So how they are species specific, how to tell them apart. There's been a paper written on the British ones, telling them apart, and it's helping us understand more about how that they all look and how it works with different species. If you have records from underwater, which is less than 1% of our records so far, but we're really hoping to get that going a bit more soon from divers and snorkelers. But underwater records can help us with ground truthing for understanding where these eggs might actually be laid. So these would be areas where they're potentially like spawning and then laying the eggs to then hatch, and if there's areas which are repeatedly used and used on like high volumes rather than just like one or two eggs, if you've got like hundreds or whatever, that might be quite an important area to try and maybe conserve, because it's probably quite important to that species if they keep going back there to lay their eggs there. So it's all things like that. So this is now reaching a little bit more beyond the kind of initial core concept of it, but it's all things that this project can and does help contribute towards.
So if we now talk a little bit more about the egg cases that people can find. So we've got some examples here.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you could, I'll give them to you.
Thank
if
you.
you could go kind of the difference between the cat shark egg cases, the ray egg cases,
Yes.
skate egg cases, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, these are the main two kinds that we get around the UK coastline. So yes, you've got your cat sharks. So these are the kind of more elongated, almost kind of semi-bowling pin shaped sometimes egg cases. So they can look a lot like seaweed, especially when you've got the tendrils coming off the ends. It can be quite hard to pick them apart from the strand line sometimes. But yeah, so in the UK we do have 3 species, but only 2 that wash up very, very commonly. So this is the nurse hound, which is the really, really big one. And then you've got the small spotted cat shark, which is this dinky little one in comparison. So yeah, again, cat sharks are kind of normally this longer shape, and they've got these lovely tendrils coming from normally the top and bottom, but they can break off because they're quite delicate. And then, yeah, colour can range quite a lot. So colour isn't really a way to ID them a lot of the time, because you can get a whole host of variation. And then in contrast, you've got things like this. So these are from the skates. So this is one of our larger skate egg cases. This is from a blonde ray. And these are normally kind of squarer and rectangular in shape, often kind of blacker in colour. And then they have these 4 horns coming from each of the corners. Sometimes these can be obscured by like the aprons at the bottom or something like that, or they can snap off because again they're quite delicate. So if you imagine this has been tossed around in the surf, maybe like trodden on, thrown around in the seaweed on a strand line, maybe even been sat on by someone that's gone to the beach, like they can get fairly beaten up, and that can obscure some of the identifying features. But yeah, so you've got, I'd say, 5 or so different skate species that wash up fairly commonly around the UK coastline. But there is the potential of up to 10 different skate species that we've got on our ID guides, but some of these are only found, for instance, like up in the north coast of Scotland. Some of them are quite rarely found in the case of the starry skate, so that's a very small one. We don't actually have that one here today, but that's a very small egg case that washes up quite irregularly. But yeah, so things like the thornback, the spotted ray, undulate, blonde, they wash up quite commonly. And there are a few others which wash up less regularly, but if you are in the right place and at the right time of year maybe, then yeah, your chances are much better for finding things like that.
And the kind of, so cat shark egg cases and skate egg cases, they obviously look different. Why does a cat shark egg case look like that? Why have they got these tendrils? What's it for?
So for the tendrils, their use is to keep the egg case attached to whatever it was laid on. So largely it's seaweed or a substrate like that, so then the mother will have 2 egg cases, 1 from each ovary, and then they will basically swim around the seaweed, round and round and round and round and round with these tendrils, and that basically ties it and anchors it down so that it doesn't wash away. And there may even be some factors such as like kind of keeping it in the right kind of like conditions for growth, because you don't want to be in too warm or too cold of water. But again, that's things that we're still unpicking, and studies are being done on things like that. So yeah, it's mostly for anchoring, and it also is quite handy because it sometimes keeps them together, so you can find multiples in one hit, which I quite like, whereas you don't get that quite so much with the skate egg cases.
And then with the skates, so these horns, what do they have a use? Like what are they for?
Yeah, no, for the skates, the main thing for the skate egg cases is that they're normally quite mucousy, so that will frankly gets dried off and washed off when it washes up on the shore. But when it's on the seabed, that there's normally a mucus around it which attracts like fibres and sand and general kind of like, not detritus, that's the wrong word, but things that will like help weigh it down and keep it on the seabed and stop it kind of just being bashed around at the bottom of the ocean.
That is fair. And for people who aren't watching, people who are just listening, these look a lot like seaweed.
So much like seaweed, is sometimes very, very hard to tell them apart. We do quite often get people being like, oh, I think I found an egg case, and you're like, oh, that looks so similar, especially to some of these ones. Like this could look just like a little bladder on a piece of seaweed, especially if it was darker brown in colour. But yeah, so we get a lot of people either thinking it is seaweed and not realising it's an egg case, or the other way around, thinking they found an egg case and it's seaweed. But keep going, keep searching, because the more you find it, the more you learn, the better you get at spotting them. And once you've got your eye in, you'll be addicted.
And them looking like seaweed, not only is that probably beneficial to them when they've been laid, so predators can't eat them and stuff like that, but it does mean that it is sometimes difficult to find them on the strand lines.
It does. Yeah.
And you're obviously basically an expert in finding egg cases, or identifying them, because that's part of your job.
Identifying, definitely.
Could you tell us, what egg cases have you found in these?
This is such a setup.
Yeah.
So the most kind of common ones I found are probably the thornback rays. I found quite a lot of small-eyed rays, especially since a lot of my egg case hunts have been done on the South Devon coast. Small spotted cat sharks, spotted sharks, and then on the south coast, kind of in the southeast, I found a fair few ungulates. But what I know you're leading me towards is the fact that nurse hounds, I think everyone in the office pretty much has found one so far, but I still have not found one yet. But hopefully this weekend I'm going on an egg case hunt, so hopefully this weekend will be my week.
The nurse hounds are quite commonly found, are they?
In some areas, yeah. Some areas they're less common, but yeah, especially on like kind of North Wales coastline, they're quite common around there, yeah.
Wow. Those are some of the UK ones.
Yes.
Which are interesting. They are interesting.
Yep.
But my personal opinion is that there's some that are more interesting, and we just sadly do not have them here. But, I mean, we do. We've got one right there.
We do.
Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure, yeah. So this one here is, I mentioned them earlier, it's the horn shark. So this is from a California horn shark, and these are corkscrew in shape. So you can see, I mean, sorry to our listeners rather than our viewers, but it's got a keel that runs round it in a corkscrew fashion and adds a frill to it, so it does look like a corkscrew. And essentially when this is laid, the mother will like pick it up, wedge it into some rocks while it's still kind of, rubbery is the wrong word, but that's the kind of as close to as I can get at the moment. And then when it solidifies, it gets properly wedged into the crack in the rocks, and then it's safer from predation. Of course, some things can probably still get at it, but at least affords it some form of protection, and keeps it still so it doesn't just, again, wash around the bottom of the seafloor going who knows where. But yeah, so these ones are really cool, and then it would hatch out the top.
So you spoke earlier about how like there's a cat shark in UK waters called black mouse cat shark, and their egg cases are rare to find, not necessarily due to the fact that there aren't many of them, but due to the fact that they're in deep water.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people think you're finding chimera ones. They're usually associated with like deeper water. Is that there's species that aren't in deep water and those are washing up, or is it just that these egg cases are super buoyant?
I don't actually know the answer to that. I would assume that these ones are less deep water species, or maybe that they come up to like breed in shallower waters, or it just so happens to be that they're near an area where like the currents then like can carry the egg cases up from a deeper water to the beaches. There's all sorts of factors that can be at play for the distribution of egg cases. But yes, in South Africa and around Australia and New Zealand, we get quite a few egg cases recorded of. So in South Africa, it's the Cape elephant fish, and then around the Australian and New Zealand coastlines, it is the. Is it the St. Joseph shark? No, that's the Cape elephant fish. What is it called? It's something elephant fish. We're going to have to cut this bit.
That's okay.
It's another elephant fish around the Australian coastline, but you get lots of them washing up.
Okay, and that is quite interesting. So, going on from that, so we're not only collecting these records of egg cases, and then potentially we can work out where maybe egg-laying grounds are and stuff like that, but we're also collecting other records because we have, this is the flagship project, but we do have other citizen science projects. Could you please talk about, just mention some of the other projects and kind of what are they?
Yeah, sure. So we have, I think it's 4 other projects of varying different scales. So the ones I won't go into too much detail on are, we have an angling project where anglers can report their catches and their finds to us. Sometimes, largely these are from like catch and release kind of recreational angling activities. We have the, Exeter run a shark and ray entanglement network sightings program, which is fondly referred to as Sharon. And so we host the data for that so that they can then carry on with the project. So that's, I think it's a worldwide project. People find sharks either alive or dead, entangled in some kind of rope, fishing gear or other materials, report how the entanglement and where it was, and then let us know. And then the kind of final 2 are sort of linked. So we have the sightings database, which is of kind of all shark sightings from anywhere, anyone, any shark around the world. And then there's also the basking shark project, but that's more of a subset of that one, but that is just looking specifically at basking sharks. So for these last projects, it's more of a sightings only data. So it's I saw X number of sharks of this species at this location at this place. So it can't be used for like tracking or kind of population dynamics or anything like that. And a lot of the time they come through without images, because sometimes when you see a shark, it's a fleeting glimpse and you don't have time to go get the camera, or you might not have a camera on you. If you're diving or if you're just walking on a headland or something, you might not have the opportunity to get photos. So a lot of them are unverified, so the ID isn't 100% confirmed, but it's still really interesting to know, A, from how is the project growing, so how many people are taking part, but also what species are there potentially out there. So the basking shark project is a very large subset of this database, and we currently manage and look after the data from the Marine Conservation Society's Basking Shark Watch project, which they kind of not folded, but they stopped collecting records for, so they now come to us and we have that all data. So that now means that we have, I think, around 60,000 basking shark records from like the 80s to now. We're still actively collecting basking shark records at the time of recording this podcast. The first basking shark has already been seen for basking shark season for 2024, so that's quite exciting. And so I look forward to seeing what records from basking sharks come in this year. And then, the general shark log sightings database, that is a more general, if you've seen a shark anywhere, let us know. If you're a diver on a headland, seen it washed up on the beach, let us know.
And if we focus kind of in on the basking shark, sorry, I said that wrong. So we focus in on the basking shark project and these sightings. I know that obviously it's citizen science data, a lot of it isn't verified, so we can't necessarily use it to be like, this is where the sharks are, but they can sometimes give insights into other things, so people engaging with it. And there could be, if we looked at it over time and the engagement was the same, you might be like, they're not being spotted here. And then it might be like, well, this is what we've got, we can now do further education into this. Is there anything that is coming up, or any developments that you see coming up in the future for these kind of citizen science projects?
Yeah, so that is one of the true joys and complexities of citizen science data, is when records either get more prevalent or less prevalent, is that because there are more people aware of the project and reporting it and they're excited by it, and maybe we're promoting it more so more people are aware of it? Or is it that there are more sharks to be seen? Or is it that there has been, like for instance, basking sharks, there's been a shift in the range from them being seen quite commonly around the southwest of England, and then later in the season to being more up by Scotland. They're now more traditionally seen around the Scottish coastline a lot. But that also does coincide quite nicely a lot of the time with our levels of promotion of the project, and especially in the most recent years, we know the basking sharks have moved, but in the recent years the numbers of basking sharks around the UK coastline have dropped quite a lot. And what we really want to try and start unpicking is that because people have gotten maybe used to seeing basking sharks and it's not as exciting and kind of, oh my god, I must let someone know, as it used to be, and they are still there, they're just not being told to us? Or is it that the basking sharks are actually being seen less often and people are looking for them and they're just not seeing it? So having what we're kind of referring to as negative finds is actually still quite useful to us. So if you see a basking shark, awesome, let us know. But if you've actively gone out to try and find them, and they should be there because it's the right season, it's the right place, but you don't see them, that's also really important to us, because then that tells us that someone was looking and they didn't see any, rather than there might have been a basking shark but nobody let us know, or there was no one there to see it. It's the whole kind of adage of a tree falls in the forest. Does it still make it sound like the basking sharks might be there, but because there's no one there to tell us that they were, or there's no one telling us, we don't know. So pushing more records on both the basking shark project and the shark log sightings database is kind of pet project for the next year. Really want to get it promoted, really want to get more people involved and excited by the idea of this. The app that we launched last year now, I think, has really helped with that, because it's made lots of people very excited, and having it in the palm of your hands, you're like, ooh, I saw this shark on the beach on a boat, on a ferry crossing, is really good and really useful to a lot of people, and we want to continue promoting more. So I know that we've got, I think it's the Green Match Fund coming up, so that's going to be, a lot of that is going towards the Basking Shark kind of project and helping put signage up to get people again interested and excited by it, and kind of help people with learning that the sharks are out there to see. And if you're looking for basking sharks, you might see other stuff at the same time. So stay tuned is my answer to that one, to see what comes out of it.
And if people did see a shark or see a basking shark even from a headland and something like that, and they wanted to submit on the app, is the app easy to find? Or if they don't have a phone, they can't download an app, is there another way for them to record it?
So there's multiple ways for you to record. So no matter how tech savvy you are, there is always a way. So the first one is the app. So for that, you just search for the Shark Trust in your relevant app store, and then that has a portal for all of our projects. So egg cases, sightings, angling, entanglement, they're all on there. Then you can use the online recording form. So for that, if you just go to sharktrust.org, then you can find links to all the different projects. And again, you can just then type in all the details. So the main information we need is what you saw, how many of them you saw, when you saw it, and where you saw it. If there are pictures, wonderful. That'll make me very happy, because then I can actually verify it, especially with cases. If you have a picture, brilliant, because then I can actually confirm your ID as we know this is correct. So that's kind of like the main things. And there's lots of other information on there as well, which you can fill in. The more you can fill in, the better. It's more helpful to us. But if you don't know the answers, that's fine. We can, especially with IDs sometimes as well, if you've got a picture and you're not sure, you can submit it as an unknown, and then one of our team will ID, and it's still really helpful because we can ID it and we can work out what it is. So it's the app, you've got the recording forms, and then the other alternative you've got is you can just email us. So for things like sightings, you've got sightings@sharktrust.org, so you can just email it direct. That could just be a, hey, I saw this shark at this place, and then normally, probably me, will get back to you. And then, I'll kind of ask for more information. If you've got pictures, please try and send them. But again, if not, it's not the end of the world. And then we get some of ours through social media as well. So sometimes people will tweet us or put it on Facebook and tag us into it and things like that. So we can get records through a whole host of places. I mean, from my point of view, the app or the recording forms is easier for me, because then I don't have to manually input it myself. But if that's something you're struggling with, or you've got computer issues, or you're not comfortable trying to use the app or the recording forms, then you can just email us, message us on Facebook, give us a ring, just let us know. But the online ones are my preference, please and thank you.
Thank you. And having all of these kind of citizen science projects, the kind of point of the app was to make it kind of more accessible, like on the go, so that when people do find one, they can take that picture, submit it there and then, and it's not they've forgotten about it and they've gone home and then not submitted it. Have you found kind of an increase? So obviously we said about kind of engagement, increase in engagement. You see these kind of flurries of maybe people reporting basking sharks, maybe people reporting sightings. Have you seen an increased engagement in egg cases as well?
Yeah, so especially when the app was launched and we did a lot of promo around it, there was a fairly significant spike in the number of egg cases being reported. Some of that then slacks off, because sometimes you just go, ooh, look, new shiny thing, there's an app, let's go find an egg case, and then once you've found one, you kind of mentally shelve it, forget about it, and then maybe might come back to it if you walk along a beach and you see one 6 months later. But also, if you've only ever submit one egg case, that still helps, it's still really useful. So it did lead to a spike in reporting for a little while. I'm not sure how sustained that has been, because I know quite a few of our members have gone over from submitting via a recording form, recording via the app, just because it is so much easier, so much quicker, it's more accessible. I know I'm very guilty of going to a beach, finding some egg cases, putting them in my boot of my car, forgetting for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then submitting them later, if I submit them at all. So it's very easily done, so we do get it. But also on that note, if you have a sighting of a shark or an egg case, even if it was years ago, you can still submit it, because you have all the date options on the forms and the app. So if you found one in 2001, still let us know. It's still important information.
And with all these amazing citizen science projects, way people can get engaged. You mentioned earlier about reports and stuff.
Yes.
So the kind of outputs or outcomes of this, how does that help sharks and skates and rays, and kind of what does that look like for us when we're putting out these documents?
So a lot of our reports are more just to kind of almost say thank you to the citizen scientists, because frankly, without the public giving us the records, these projects wouldn't exist. Like, it's all very well and good me sitting there in the office looking at egg cases, but unless people go out and find the egg cases, look, spot the sharks, record their sightings to us, there would be nothing for me to do. I'd have to find another part of the job to maximise on. But yeah, so it's largely about giving back to them, saying thank you, being like, this is what you found, this is what you've contributed to. And they're generally kind of like more summary reports. So kind of, these are the hotspots for this year, these are the top species for this year, a little bit of competition, these were the top recorders for this year, although we've had to start splitting that out because there are several organisations now that will run their own egg case hunts, and that's a little bit unfair if you've got like 30 people regularly hunting versus like this one person who goes out every week. The groups of 30 are probably more likely to find more, so we started splitting it by organisation and person now, just so people can still get their little shout out. Yeah, so it's part of that kind of giving back to the community, encouraging support, and also because if people feel that they're contributing to something, then they're more likely to continue doing so. Also helps, I guess, with promotion as well, because if we're putting out the reports and there's materials for people to read, to see, to understand why they're doing it, to kind of help spread the word, and people will share on social media that we've put out these reports, and then other people might see it, might go, ooh, what's this, get interested, get involved, and then the base continues to grow and continues to expand. The data, what we then do with it is we, again, as I said earlier, kind of data librarian, we keep a hold of it, keep it in storage, make sure it's maintained. A lot of this we're hopefully going to be making open access very soon, but currently if you want the data for your research, for a university project, we've had some people asking us for data on like particular shark species because they're looking at like environmental impact assessments, or it might go towards informing proposals for like marine protected areas, things like that. If there's evidence that can be used for science-based kind of research or conservation, and we then provide this data to those people. So that's a much lesser part of it than the engagement. That doesn't happen nearly as much as we would quite like, but yeah, moving forwards with the data being open access, we hope that the data will be used more, and hopefully we'll be able to see some really exciting papers or reports or use from this data. So again, stay tuned and see what comes of it, but exciting times ahead.
And if, say, I'm a researcher, I'm researching either marine protected areas or egg-laying shark or skate species, and I wanted access to this, who is it that I'd email? Is it you that I'd email?
Yeah, so you can either just message conservation@sharktrust.org or message any of the kind of direct project emails. So you got eggcase@sharktrust.org, sightings@sharktrust.org. Largely these all come to my inbox, but I'll pick them up anyway. Yeah, and generally you just kind of drop a message being like, hi, this is my project, this is the data I want. Do you have something that would suit? And I will come back either saying, no, sorry, but you might be able to find this person, or I'll say, yeah, sure, we have X many basking sharks from this region. Let's do like, it's normally kind of more informal data sharing agreements. Depends on how much data you want. If you just want like 3 points from a beach in Devon, can probably just send that over. Yeah. But for slightly more comprehensive data sets, you might need a bit more of an informal agreement. But again, moving forward, hoping to make it open access, at which point we would probably just upload up to the previous year's data. You just fill in a web form, type in why you need it, what you're going to use it for, probably a contact email address, so we can be like, hey, if you have any outputs, please kind of like let us know. And then yeah, you'll just be able to download it there and then, so that makes it a lot more accessible for everyone, and it'll be exciting to see what comes of that. And it also will save me a wee bit of time and not having to do all the data sharing agreements and the liaising. If people can just access it, then that saves a little bit of time for me.
Yeah, I think making shark conservation more accessible for everyone is
a good thing.
Is a good thing, yeah. And then to kind of wrap this up, so we've spoken about kind of your role, engaging people, how important engagement education is, kind of as that gateway into shark conservation for a lot of people. And I was wondering if you could, when people are engaging in sharks, one of the first questions people ask is always, what's your favourite shark? What's your favourite ray? Something like that. Have you got a favourite shark or ray?
I do, yeah. I mean, I feel a little bit like I'm almost a traitor being at the Shark Trust and my favourite one being a ray, but I have always been a massive fan of devil rays and specifically mantas, just because I've not actually managed to see one in the wild yet, and that's a massive bucket list item for me. So yeah, I just think they're so smart, they're so beautiful, and their behaviour is fascinating. I absolutely love animal behaviour and the movements they make and dive profiling. So yeah, they're definitely a kind of a secret favourite of mine. But then if I have to go for a shark, then it would probably be a whale shark, purely just because I have been incredibly fortunate to like work with them and do some research on them in my past. So I feel like kind of a little bit of a kinship, and also they are just beautiful, beautiful creatures. So yeah, they're probably my two favourites.
Fantastic. Very good choices as well. Both beautiful species. Thank you very much for joining us on this one. I'm sure you'll be back for future episodes as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching and listening to episode 5 of the Shark Trust podcast. If you want to learn any more information about the work we do and how you can get involved, you can visit our website at www.sharktrust.org. You can also follow us on our social media. We're on basically all of it. And then if you did want to get involved in any of our citizen science projects, you can find the Shark Trust app on all the app stores, as well as the recording forms, which are
recording.sharktrust.org.
Yes. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for listening, and like, share and subscribe.
Hey, I'm Hetty. Thanks for listening to the Shark Trust podcast. Did you know that you can support our work protecting sharks and rays? Here's just some of the ways you can help today. Join our community of passionate shark supporters and gain access to exclusive events and content by becoming a Shark Trust member. You can adopt these incredible animals, directly supporting our conservation efforts and research projects. Make a donation today. Every donation makes a huge difference. Your contribution will go towards funding our vital work all across the world. And finally, if you want to get more hands-on, you can take part in our citizen science projects. Your data and observations are invaluable to understanding the world of sharks. Together, we can make a difference. Visit our website to find out more and take action today.